I'm going to talk about much anticipated Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. Start with the lessons. The book is written in a funny way, but sometimes the laughter you experience while reading it's not so funny because you realize that this actually happens in real life as well. People are really this stupid in this real life as well. Like, it's not just about the book. Like, people are this stupid in real life as well. Don Quixote is written in a way basically that in different stages of your life you will read this book and you will see different things. Sometimes you will pay attention to one thing, sometimes you will pay attention to another thing. So the main thesis is this, basically the delusions of people. Delusions of people from two sides. Let's divide the world of Don Quixote right now in two parts. The one part belongs to Don Quixote alone. This is a world that only Don Quixote, Mr. Don Quixote, owns. And the second part is owned by rest of the, because one world is for Don Quixote alone and another world belongs to just rest of the people. How many times have we seen an experience where, for example, Don Quixote is described as insane, and at the same time the people that criticize him are no less insane, no less stupid, in different way, in a socially acceptable way. If Don Quixote is a rare exception, most people are just in a collective madness, while Don Quixote is in a basically sort of single madness slash other people kind of experience the same madness as him, but not on the level as he does. But there is a joint madness where everybody is mad in the same way and everybody else believes in the same nonsense or same irrationality, and I'm going to explain to you in the rest of the video. You will understand what I mean by same irrationality. And while there is a Don Quixote, a single individual that just believes in these stories that are not real, but what majority of people in the book believe to be real, it's also not real. They are both of the stories, basically the people of these two worlds, both of them believe in equally delusional stories, and author most likely has done it deliberately. But let's start with the quotes by the author here. A father may have a child who is ugly and lacking in all the graces, and love he feels for him puts a blindfold over his eyes, so that he does not see his defects, but considers them sign of charm and intelligence, and recounts them to his friends, and if they were clever and witty. Now, this quote is going to be something that I'm going to reference a lot, because what we see throughout the story of the first part is the way Don Quixote exists, right? He is an interesting man. The person he loves is the most beautiful woman in the world. It doesn't matter, like, if Don Quixote had a love toward you, you would be most beautiful person and most highly esteemed person in the world. Like, it doesn't matter whether person he loves is really beautiful or not. For Don Quixote, that person is most beautiful, and maybe person in love generally is like Don Quixote, but that's not something we can say for certain, and it would divert us from the main topic of the discussion. But in generally, some people do think so, and maybe when you are in love and when we are in love as well, we also consider that the person we love to be most beautiful woman in the world as well, but or most beautiful person in general. But usually we forcefully put blindfold over our eyes because of love and because of social acceptability. Don Quixote in the book decides to become a knight that fights evil, and at certain point I had this experience when I felt pity at some point for Don Quixote because he was such a madman, and on another hand I felt deep envy, because here he could be a man in the rain fighting the devils, fighting the titans, and he could have best of his life. Even psychologists, for example, let's say a person suffers from a madness now, and that person is happy in his or her madness, like that person genuinely believes something and that person is not sane. Like, do we have a right to bring her from her beautiful delusions to the dark reality? Let's say there's a person that had 10 kids and she is a mother, and 10 of her kids died and her entire family is dead, and now right now she is delusional and she lives in an imaginary world where all her family members and etc. are alive. Do we have a right to bring that person to the reality? I mean, what's the big deal if that person is delusional? No, it's not. It's not a big deal. As for the main premise that I've started at the beginning of the video, now we have Don Quixote that believes in these knighthood stories, and we have the vast majority of society that believes in a Catholic church and that believes in God. Now, I believe that Miguel de Cervantes has done it deliberately, where he and medieval authors often try to do something like that, basically, where he probably tries to criticize the religion, but he obviously doesn't dare to point his or finger directly to the religion, so he uses Don Quixote as a pawn and his madness as a pawn to basically criticize the religion. So people, for example, that come to Don Quixote and they're like, how can you believe that Amadis of the Gaul is a real person? How can you believe such a nonsense that a person can travel to 4 sides of the planet so fast, in Asia, in Africa, in America, and so on? How can you believe this nonsense? This is irrationality. Don Quixote believed that he is fighting millions of devils. Like, how can anyone seriously take the religion then? But at the same time, of course, Don Quixote has a one world and everybody else has another world. So Don Quixote is mad because he believes in these stories, while the rest of the society is sane because they believe in socially accepted lie. And I believe that their Cervantes does it deliberately. Point is that if Amadis of Gaul is delusional, why is an idea of certain religion more plausible? Like, is there more evidence for some certain events in religion or certain promises than, for example, Amadis of the Gaul? Is it more plausible? And of course, the author pays high attention to the fact that reading nonsense, impossible foolishness made him stupid. Too much reading and too little sleep, his brain dried up, causing him to lose his mind. Now, of course, the author says it's related to Don Quixote, but who also reads too much and sleeps too little? Monks. The priests, like the most devoted monks, they don't sleep at all, and most of the time they read and work. The way Don Quixote uses Aldonza Lorenza is quite intriguing, because she's a woman, and in imagination of Don Quixote and the way Cervantes puts it, she becomes Dulciana of Toboso, the most beautiful and most noble woman in the world. And it is impossible to not to think about whether Don Quixote represents here a certain type of character, and whether author itself, the Cervantes, meant it this way. But if we were to put different women in place of Aldonza Lorenza, like, so many people imagine her to be much greater than she was, and we receive these twists and turns, and it becomes like questionable whether the story is really about that. There is an interesting moment between Sancho Panza and Don Quixote. Basically, they have an argument, and Don Quixote states this: "In truth, I consider it great fault, both on your part and mine." This is, by the way, the words of Don Quixote. On yours, because you do not have a higher opinion of me. On mine, because I do not allow a higher opinion. And this was on the deep insides of Don Quixote, or the Knight of a Sorrowful Face. This is how he later becomes known, the Knight of a Sorrowful Face, because he suffers, and his life is indeed suffering. You know, I have not said much about Don Quixote, but he is not your average person. He is above average, is very well read, very well educated individual, but he just goes insane. The way Don Quixote fights imaginary enemies. Who else fights imaginary enemies? Can we see another type of people that also fight imaginary enemies? Of course, the Catholic Church. That's unquestionable. The Don Quixote is assumed to be a madman, right? And I am not sort of arguing with it. It's not like Don Quixote is not insane. He is. It's not like he's only madman. Nobody is sane, really, at least in this society. And the way Cervantes represents us, the insanity and stupidity of people, of for example, of higher purse and etc., and how naive they are, or how basically greedy for money and sort of power certain people are. For example, Sancho Panza is a typical illiterate person that just wants wealth, and even thought he could be one of the sane peasants, he refuses to be sane because he's blinded by greed. By the way, there is also one thing the people around Don Quixote conclude. Basically, Don Quixote is only delusional when it comes to the knighthood stuff. Basically, he is perfectly sane and fine when it comes to other things, but once it touches these knighthood ideas and etc., he becomes insane. And we could also argue that most people are perfectly sane and perfectly fine unless it touches religion, and then it starts to become basically violent. Because Don Quixote indeed becomes violent, for example, once his ideas and beliefs about knighthood are challenged. At the end of the first part, Don Quixote returns to his village. Now, at the end of this discussion, I want to say that this is amazing work. Everything here could be interpreted in many different ways. Of course, we can see how foolish a person in love is, how foolish it is, for example, to test your wife, or how certain people suffer from like certain thoughts and want to test their loved ones in a different way, and how pathetic this is really, and how delusional the life in certain ways is, and how nonsensical at the same time. How nonsensical. Don Quixote has said it himself that, even so, I want you to know, brother Sancho, that there is no memory that time does not erase, no pain not ended by death. And thanks God for this. Thanks God that there is no memory that time does not erase, and no pain not ended by death. I mean, thanks God for this. And yeah, no matter this all stupidity and these stories about, for example, the man that still decided to, with his best friend, to test his wife's loyalty, and all these nonsensical people that are running in mountains because of love, because of beauty, because of whatever. Thanks God that everything is ended by death, because at the end of the day, the reader and we realize that just this is nonsensical, then it is impossible to take it seriously. At the end of the day, we have a smile on our face, and genuinely I cannot help but laugh when I think about certain stories about Don Quixote, or how he became a knight, or how all this ridiculousness just comes together, and how Cervantes does it so beautifully. And I think one of the most powerful points about this book is that no matter what, no matter how depressing the story is, if we were to pay it very close attention, at the end of the day, we end up with smile and laughter and with very positive energy, and at the same time we laugh. But I had this moment when I was laughing, but during the laughter I realized what I was laughing about. I didn't want it to laugh so much. But this is a beauty and power of Cervantes. He is a truly master, and his work is truly on different level. And this is the end of the discussion. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the conversation, and subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below, who is Don Quixote to you?